We are continuing Barbenheimer part 2 this week, and we're going to talk about Barbie. When this film was announced, I literally was like, why do we need a movie about Barbie? Like, I just didn't understand at all. And then when I heard Greta wasn't attached, I was like, well, I guess I have to see it because I love Greta. So I will go to see it. And I was watching some interviews and stuff before I went to go see it. And it looked, what it seemed like was like a more like in-depth look at Barbie who's having like an existential crisis. It was funny. I laughed a lot. I did leave feeling kind of empty. Like I didn't really feel much from this, which given how their approach of it or how they were marketing the film, I think I was supposed to. I kind of thought back to the interviews that I had watched previous, and a lot of interviewers were asking like, okay, who is this movie for? And the answer always was the same. And the answer was, it's a party and everyone's invited. That's how they continued to market the film. And I think when you're trying to market to everyone, your messaging, you can kind of go far with it, but there's only so far you can go with it because you're trying to appeal to a mass audience. Margot Robbie, I think this for me is her best performance that she's ever given, and this is just my opinion. I think that this is like her best performance
Yeah.
because Margot Robbie is an actress who's like in a lot of stuff, but I don't necessarily find her performances always compelling. I think that she always gives 100% because that's kind of her personality. Like she's doing a million different things. She's producing this movie. She's going to give everything. So I always admire like her drive and her ambition, but I think in terms of like as an actress, I never was like, "Oh, who's one of my favorite people who I can't wait to go see in a movie?" It was never Margot Robbie. But, like, this performance was definitely great. I think she was attached first, but she really gave it her all as she does with everything else, but made Barbie, which is a doll, she made it interesting. Um, and I think she did a lot of really funny kind of physical performance and physical comedy in it too, and she it was a good take. Like, I actually whatever they discussed in terms of, like, what Barbie stereotypical Barbie would be, I feel like she really delivered on that in terms of the comedy, but also the emotional moments. I thought she did a really good job. Ryan Gosling was fine. Like, I thought he was really funny. I like when he's able to stretch his comedy, muscles because I think he is just naturally a very gifted comedic actor. I know he's a really good dramatic actor as well, but like he always does great in comedy. So the whole thing about him and the Kenergy and all that other stuff, it kind of I'll say that the marketing was very good because like everyone was talking about this movie and they're still talking about it.
Yeah.
Um and because it's feminine and because women and specifically teenage girls drive culture, that was what was in everyone's mind. So like him being with the six pack or however many packs he has and the little fur vest and whatever, like that's for the girlies. Like I understand. It's for the girlies and the gays. Like I get it. I understand why so much focus was put on him in particular, even though like he doesn't do anything. Like the whole what his job is like I do beach. Like that's supposed to be a commentary on like how he literally doesn't have anything to do. But I think for what it was, I think he did a really good job in it. My issue with his character actually has more to do with the script and not actually his characterization of Ken. It's true, like no one really cared about the Ken dolls. And to be honest, I didn't really care about the Barbie dolls either, but like whatever, we're here. So I thought the production design was divine. It was exquisite. I wouldn't be shocked if this won Best Oscar for production design. The cast was great. I love this cast. It was so fun and unexpected. Like I wasn't expecting certain people to be in it. This is my favorite Issa Rae performance. I think she did an amazing job in this movie. She was so funny. I just loved watching her. And also they took like half of the sex education gang and just like put them in this movie, which I thought again was awesome. Like Emma and
I'm
Shruti
Shruti.
and Connor, who plays Adam, like he's also in this movie. And I was like, I just love because I had just binge watched Sex Education. So that was like the best primer for me to be invested in this film because I was like, oh my gosh, the characters I love from that show are in this movie, I'm here. Like I was here
I
for it.
think at one point Shooty's like, "Oh, where's my Barbie?" And then Emma McKay comes next to him, and I was like, "Ah, that's the thing. That's that. Yeah."
And the costumes, they're getting nominated for a costume design, 100%.
This movie Ken is gonna take the back seat and put movie Barbie in the front.
Why Barbie, right? Why was this a movie that people felt like invested in making, invested in telling the story of? Barbie's kind of not really that relevant anymore. Like she was back in the day, but the idea that like Barbie was like reflecting culture and like she was like empowering women was never something that I picked up on when I was a kid playing with Barbies. That never entered my mind. I never said, "Oh, well, Barbie is an astronaut and also a doctor somehow." And that means that I can also be an astronaut or a doctor. Like I that never clicked for me. And I don't know if that's been other people's experience with the dolls where it's like they knew the history and like what Barbie was doing and that empowered them. And I think the movie spent a lot of time addressing the criticisms and addressing like why you like maybe initially wouldn't want to be invested in the story. And I think that kind of I feel like it left a lot of holes. From what I was receiving was like, yes, this is a movie about dolls, but really it's a movie about all of us. Like that's how they were selling it.
Yeah,
And for me, I just felt like trying to address all of these issues and still have a white, straight, very beautiful woman playing your main character isn't really selling whatever message you're trying to give. Because at the end of the day, you can talk about all of the issues, but you're still making the executive decision to have this person lead your film. And sometimes it's like, okay, you're butting against the commentary of like what you're trying to say by what you're actually doing. And I feel like that is counterintuitive of the message that you're trying to send. I was happy to see Issa Rae and Alexandria Shipp and Simu and Ben, and Shushi. I loved seeing them in this movie. But again, they're still supporting characters. Like they're not the main people. They have blind spots. Thank you.
yeah,
When I watched Little Women, I feel like one of the points that was really strongly brought across was the fact that you had these very smart and passionate young women, and then you had the men in the movie who were very supportive of them. They were doing their own thing, but like they were very much in this kind of utopia of where like men and women can coexist and play with each other and love each other and support each other. I didn't feel that in this. I feel like in this film, the model that we start out with is a matriarchy, and then they go to the real world, and then Ken brings the patriarchy back, and then they fight to restore it to a matriarchy. And Ken's trying to find his identity outside of Barbie, but that's really like they don't like that's what they're doing. Like they don't have any, I don't know if they have roles. Again, that's another thing that kind of took away from how impactful this movie could have been. Because I feel like if that was the message is what we need is an egalitarian type of society
I
where
like
we're
that
all
word.
equal and we're all supporting each other and we all have roles. Because I think one of the things about white feminism, especially, is that there isn't any changing of the structure. It's just we're on top now.
Yeah,
That's the shift. Not let's look at these individual issues that are leading to like people being violent and people being angry. It's more just like, no, we don't want y'all on top. We want to be on top. And that's progress. And that's not true. And I feel like after making Little Women, especially, that should have been the idea from the get-go. Like it wasn't as inclusive as it could have been. And I don't understand why, especially coming from Greta. Like that was that I still can't reconcile that at all. Like it's just not making any sense to me. I think the people who already hate this, especially people who in like men's rights groups and stuff, like they were gonna hate it regardless. They probably haven't even seen the film. So like I'm not
yeah.
gonna say anything about them. Greta wrote this with a man. You know what I'm saying? It's not like she wrote it by herself. So I'm just wondering like what was the conversation that didn't happen. Mattel is not and maybe it's in the wake of like the strikes and everything that's going on. We're positioning uh, a global conglomerate, like a huge company, as like just lovable guys in suits. Like, is that what we're trying to say right now? Like,
It
no. And this speaks to just what Barbie is in terms of this film. It's capitalism at its finest.
If you look at where the CEO boardroom of just a giant heart, it's predominantly male dominated with their views of Barbie are, and they're like, oh, Ken doesn't really matter. I kind of find that really weird. Of It's a man run company, but you don't want to have women to, especially young girls, to have aspirational ideas of what men are or what roles men should or could play in society, and then the side note of the only other major building you could see from that boardroom just happens to be Warner Brothers Discovery in the background, and then that's it.
It's an example of why I don't like when like really interesting indie filmmakers take on big projects, because a lot of the time, even if you do have the majority say over it, somehow it happens
Yeah.
in every single one of these films, the studios get their little grimy fingers into what you're doing. And then all of a sudden, you have a car chase where the product placement is the car. So you have to watch this car chase where
Mm.
one of the shots is just on the logo of the car. So you know that they're a sponsor for this
Or
film.
was
I don't like that. I feel like the studios are just gonna learn all the wrong lessons from this. I never thought I would feel more from a Chris Nolan movie than I would from a Greta Gerwig movie. Like,
yeah.
that is wild to me. What I will say is that I'm happy that these two films exist. I'm happy that people are excited. They're going back to the theaters. This is like rejuvenating people's faith in the film business, especially at this time. And I think that it's a good thing that we have two very different movies that people are excited to see together. These were two movies that were directed by directors who knew what they were doing, who had a very singular vision, and that it got people excited about film again. So, despite my critiques, I still think that I'm happy that this exists because I think that this is what this industry needs right now.
Did you like that clip? Well, you can listen to the entire podcast because the 16mm Film Crew podcast is available on all major podcast platforms.